up, guys? This is a very special episode of the whole podcast, KC, hosted by myself, Creed Buck, and the adaptive sports director, Kate Wong. And on this episode, we have a very special guest in studio with us today. Please welcome Mike Murphy.
Yes, I've known Mike Murphy for about a year now. We met at the Adaptive Training Foundation down in Dallas, Texas. And ever since I've known Mike, he just continues to blow me away with his story and all the amazing things that he's able to accomplish and overcome. So before I blow his cover, why don't we have Mike tell us a little bit about himself?
Sweet. Like they said, my name is Mike Murphy, retired Staff Sergeant, U.S. Army. Thank you, Kate. Thank you, Creed, and thank you, the whole person, for hosting me here. Just my life's been pretty wild and very blessed from numerous occasions. I guess we'll start from the beginning. I was born in Fort Hood, Texas, raised in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and kind of followed in my dad's footsteps of joining the United States Army. I pretty inspired from the events that happened during 9/11. I've been extremely patriotic my whole life, and it's always kind of a mission for me to get in and join the Army. Um, Kind of took a little bit longer than I thought, but I joined in 2011. Ended up bouncing around trying to figure out what career I wanted to get into, and I joined as a 15 whiskey, which is an unmanned aircraft systems operator. It's a fancy term for a dude that flies drones. So I served just under 10 years, and I had very blessed two of probably the best duty stations that in the Army people ask for. I was stationed in Schofield Barracks in Hawaii, and then my last 7 years I was in Fort Carson in Colorado Springs. So had two different tours. One was in Kuwait, and the second one was over in Europe. Started out in the Germany area, ended up in Greece. Very blessed from numerous occasions, from training missions, meeting. I think the biggest thing that the military offers is obviously travel was phenomenal. The benefits were amazing, and yeah, you have some pretty terrible times. However, I think the brother and sisterhood throughout my time there was kind of unbeatable. So I think it's probably what I missed the most, and I think that's where my journey's kind of led me today, where it kind of brought back some of that hope. But throughout my 10 years, I flew drones, did a bunch of different missions, worked with some amazing people. And unfortunately, my last mission, we were out in Greece, Folos, Greece. We were the first Army unit out there, kind of doing some training activities with their Marine Force. And I ended up getting in an unfortunate accident. I suffered a severe head injury, damaged my optic nerves, and it actually triggered an eye disease called LHON, Leber's hereditary optic neuritis. Basically, the genes in my optic nerves deteriorated. So eyeballs are still functioning. However, my optic nerves, or HDMI cable, just for visual picture, no longer worked. So took away central sight in both eyes. I can see bright lights, hence why I wear sunglasses all the time. Shapes and shadows, but my depth and distance is gone. So as you can imagine, when it happened, it was kind of a freak accident. We weren't combat related or anything. It was just something that, boom, I hit my head. My platoon sergeant was driving, and there was just didn't think anything huge of it at the time. It was one of those scenarios where I've had injuries throughout my career, and I've just got that hard charger mindset of let's just keep rolling. And I didn't realize it was as serious as it was. Come to find out, fast forward, I ended up going home on R&R. For those who don't know, it's kind of like anytime you're on a deployment, you get a special time. You get to go either home or you get to choose where you want to go. It was Christmas time, so went back to Albuquerque, spent some time with my family, and the sight was just slowly deteriorating. I was expecting it to be, oh, I've got like a bug in my eye, or I'm gonna get back to the States and some Visine or Roku and clean that out. I'll be good to go. We were in, I mean, it was Greece, but it wasn't necessarily the nicest part. So I figured something got in my eye. I didn't realize the extent of the injury. And come to find out, I went to the day after Christmas, I got screened and kind of sit behind the eye doctor. And they put you in the little eye exam, which one's better, left or right. And they're kind of trying different lenses. And lo and behold, my central vision's gone, so nothing changed. I go in there, all the vision's gone. They're sitting there, I can't see anything, and that's kind of when my like hit me. My heart dropped. It's one of those shocking moments to where it's like, oh crap, okay, this is this is pretty severe. So I got the paperwork. I knew I had to redeploy, and I wasn't gonna call my command and let them know. So I grabbed all my paperwork, went back out there, talked to the docs, and they immediately shipped me out to Longstuhl, Germany. So Longstuhl is where they host any injured service member upon any sort of deployments, whether it's combat or not. If you're overseas, they send you there. They've got a pretty phenomenal hospital. Went through multiple tests, got CAT scans, and at the time they just knew that it was head injury related. They seen the trauma from the head, and they seen that my optic nerves were damaged. However, they didn't know that had triggered an eye disease at the time. So ended up getting sent back home. Went to Fort Carson. They continued screening, and then up in Denver, UC Health discovered that it was this rare eye disease, and kind of that's where my journey kind of just kind of catapulted in a way. I didn't know what to expect. I was in a very dark spot at the time, kind of from December to February timeframe. It was just madness. I didn't believe I was blind. I didn't believe that I was losing my sight or visually impaired, and I was in denial. We'll just leave it at that. Where it was one of those scenarios where I'll get it back at some point. Something's gonna happen, and this isn't reality. So I was kind of lost up in the moment. Pride was still stuck in me, and it was a huge toll. Went through suicidal ideations, went through depression, went through all the dark stuff you can think about. Um, and then basically the army has these units called, now they're called soldier recovery units. Um, at the time it was a WTB, Warrior Transition Battalion. And in my mindset, normally just the stigmatism of those units. Obviously, if you're severely injured, the whole purpose of it is to go there, get better, get healed. However, if it wasn't a time of war, a lot of units just sent their not so good soldiers to those units. So in my eyes, I was like, "There's no way I'm going to WTB." I was a staff sergeant at the time. I lived off post. I had my house, and obviously, I couldn't drive anymore. So in reality, I didn't want to go there. So I fought for a year. I had an amazing command team. They took care of me. They told me, "Look, go to church, get healing, do whatever you need to do, volunteer. Like, hey, if you need to come in, great." So I was still able to kind of manage that lifestyle of being an NCO. I was a non-commissioned officer at the time, so I still had that leader mindset. However, like it took my pride and dignity. Like I went from hard charging NCO in a deployment. I was in charge of X amount of soldiers. I was the leader when it came to physical fitness and just a bunch of different realms. And then I go to a realm to where I can't even drive myself anywhere. I need to get guided to go to the restroom. I'd end up walking in female bathrooms all the time, and it was a nightmare. So it turned into it definitely hit me pretty hard. And then I think the real transition once I um once they realized there was a limit on what my regular unit can do for me as far as care goes, I finally got accepted into a WTB, sucked my pride up, and I went into the unit, and the care there was phenomenal from the medical team and all the staff. That was a huge help. However, I think what really kind of changed my entire direction where my career and life's at now was I got introduced to a guy by the name of Mark Catapan. He was the adaptive sports coordinator for the Fort Carson Recovery Unit, and he kind of introduced me to this activity called Warrior Games. And growing up, I was an athlete. I ran track and cross country. I was a wrestler. I love sports. Big diehard Broncos fans. Just sports was a good motivator. Good way to escape reality and then stay physically fit. And at the time, I didn't think. I mean, I'm blind now. What the heck am I going to do? I can barely walk. What what other avenues do I have to do now? And then they told me about Warrior Games, and it was just kind of that spark that I needed, and it gave me that sense of hope back. So fast forwarding to, I mean, post injury, I had tons of support from friends and family. I was in Colorado. My family's originally from New Mexico, so I had them. Obviously, my mom and dad wanted me to move back home right away, go with them, but me being me, there's no way that was going to happen. I had a aunt that was retired. So she was like my immediate caregiver. She was phenomenal at the time, and me and her became, like, we were already close, but it was awesome when I got back. I knew I had that connection and I had that support there. And then for a short period of time, I had a makeshift family real quick that I met some people, and there was a lot of support along the way. So I had that. It was just, I was still missing something. I didn't have me. And I think what really kind of separated that was finding out about warrior games in the adaptive sports realm. Like from it's kind of wild knowing where I'm at now and back then what adaptive sports is. I mean, that's the reason I'm here with you guys today is because all the blessings I've had and hearing about warrior games. Just so you guys know, the DoD Warrior Games is, in my eyes, it's a version of the Paralympics for injured, ill, or wounded military members. So it starts out Warrior Games. You have Team Army versus Navy versus Marines and Air Force, and then Coast Guard jumps in with the Navy. Um,
Because they're
and
not a real branch.
I got a buddy that'll argue otherwise. However, they're pretty. They kind of help out a little bit. Um, no, but it was just life changing for me. It went from a simple like some people look at sports as oh it's sports or what it's just something on TV, but in reality, like it saved my life 100%. Now I'm a huge advocate for adaptive sports, and at the time I was just like, okay, well, what activities did you guys have? I ran and wrestled. I was endurance athlete. I know I had an engine, so what can I do? And so they kind of told me the gist of it. I did an evaluation of like for me there was tons of other soldiers that have gone through the program and various injuries, whether it's amputations, whatever. And my whole body functioned. I mean, I had obviously wear and tear in knees and stuff from military career. However, my biggest illness was my eyes. So I was like, well, whatever I need, I just always needed a guide. Um, and so I was willing to do everything. And I think post injury, once I kind of heard about some of these small steps, I became the yes man. Whatever's available, I was excited as heck to just try something. I went from like it sounded awesome. All my guys when I got sent back home and they're like, "Oh, nice, you just get to stay home all week." And I was like, "Yeah, it's cool for like 2 days." And then after that, I was just getting smashed every day, smashing a handle of liquor and just doing nothing productive, poisoning my body, and it was not fun. So people think, yeah, you're retired, you got to do certain things. If you have no purpose, life sucks. So for me, hearing about sports realm was just like, heck yeah, what can I do? And then, so Mark was his primary sport cycling. He's been a cyclist forever, and he comes up and he's like, "Have you ever ridden a bike before?" I was like, "Well, of course I rode a bike as a kid, but I've got feet. Like, what am I going to be on a bike for?" I was at the time I was kind of a different person. I guess more pre-injury. I would have never like looking at cyclists. I kind of made fun of it based on outfits and just activities. And I've got legs. Like I can. My mentality was I can beat you with my feet on your bike. Yeah, you may be fast, but I'm a monster. And just kind of funny full picture now. It's my career. But so he ended up introducing me to tandem cycling, and I had no clue what it was. And he was like, "Yeah, let's see if we can get you on a bike." So a tandem is a two-seated bicycle for, I mean, for multiple people. Couples ride them. There's various other um, s- avenues you can go with a tandem, but primarily for the visually impaired, the stoker, which is my position, gets on the back of the bike, and a sighted person or a guide, captain is what they're called, they get on the front. So Mark, we ended up the unit ordered a pretty nice bike, and ultimately jumping on that bike is what gave me that sense of independence back. I think the biggest loss for me from losing my sight was the independence of being able to get around. I mean, driving was huge, not being able to just get up and go places. And then especially I was a motorcyclist, so I lived in Colorado. I was very blessed, so I can just go out in the mountains, escape, and I didn't have that feeling no more. So I think from the minute that we jumped on the bike and started training, we got told about different events. So the big picture goal was Warrior Games. Okay, Warrior Games is going to happen. So I had that hope. I had a goal to look forward to. I asked for all the events they had. So there was cycling in there. So I knew I was going to cycle. There was track and field. So I was going to do track and field. I had started training for archery. Um, Basically anything they let me do. So my primary sports at the time were cycling, track, field, swimming, and archery. So you're allowed to do 5 events. I did sign up for all 5, and of course, this was back in 2018. And as most of us know, that year later, post injury is whenever COVID came into the picture. So I was training my ass off, going through all these aspects, and then there was speed bumps. So it's just like my story, I mean, I think most people in life, everybody goes through different adversities. And I think the biggest thing that helped me along the way was so being in the military, you go through a bunch of different activities, whether it's deployments, whether it's training exercises, or even basic training for some people. You're always going to go through some sort of adversity. And I had a leader back in the day give me an analogy of a speed bump. We showed up on my first deployment, and there was a whole just mess of things. We didn't know what our mission was. We were just all over the place. And we had a bunch of NCOs, which is shocking, come up and be like, "Oh yeah," and they had their hands like, "What do we do?" And he's like, "You guys are coming here with problems. I need solutions. You're gonna run into a speed bump, but how the hell are you gonna get over that speed bump?" So that's always stuck with me. No matter what, like, yes, there's life's gonna suck, things are gonna happen, but it's a speed bump in life. At the end of the day, you're gonna get over it, no matter how you're gonna do it. So I think for me, going through the injury kind of prepared me for the whole world crisis of COVID and all the crap that happened there. It felt like Murphy's Law. I mean, hence the name. Last name's Murphy. Just kind of kept happening and happening. But it sucked that there was always all these different speed bumps that kept blocking me. However, I was blessed to be in the area that I was in, Fort Carson at the time. All the other units were shut down. I know Fort Lewis, McCord, they didn't do anything for years. And we had Mark Catapan, who was hard charging, plugging us into everything that was within the realms of COVID, but we still did things. So we weren't able to do Warrior Games, unfortunately. It got canceled multiple times. So I was still training my butt off for all these different activities. However, in the meantime, I had the Rocky Mountains. So right in our backyard, we had Pikes Peak Hill Climb. I was able to go and ride up Pikes Peak, and I was able to do my first big event that I did that kind of just set the stage for me being a cyclist today was an event called Ride the Rockies. And I guess backtrack, I did do so the Beartooth Challenge was an event put on by Operation Second Chance, and very blessed. We went out and rode. I was in the Rockies in Montana, and part of Wyoming. We went and did a little 3 day course there, and it was fun. 3 days, it was challenging, but I was blessed from the fact that before that, I lived in Colorado, so all of our training rides, we weren't just riding on flat ground. And for me, I love the suck. Anything that I can a lot of people don't like the uphills. I thoroughly enjoy the uphills, especially being on the back. I'm just the engine. So pedal my ass off, get up there, get that grind. And once you're at the top, you earn that downhill. And I think different from like individual bikes, you can catch speed. However, on a tandem, you have two full grown men. I'm kind of half grown, but you still get that we're bombing down a mountain. And I remember going back to my first event, Ride the Rockies, was they changed the route up every year. And my whole childhood driving through Colorado, I've got family everywhere. I can't see these routes no more. Obviously, I can't see the roads, but my other senses have heightened immensely: smell, hearing, and luckily, God blessed me with a pretty solid sense of direction. So even though I can't see, I know where I'm at. And the first route, we started in Durango, Colorado, looped around, and we did basically a clockwise turn to Cortez, Norwood, and then our last day was from Norwood up over through Ouray, Colorado. Beautiful town, Swiss of the Alps, or the Alps of the Rockies is what they refer to as. And then you go up over the Red Pass. And as you're climbing the Red Pass, there's a ginormous waterfall. So for me, we used to pass through this all the time as a kid, and I was never able to stop. Whatever the reason may have been, we just never did. We were always going to see family. And now having all those different points, it was just extremely nostalgic. But at the same time, it was that freeing feeling of I can climb a mountain, I can do all this, and then on top of it, being a stoker in that position, I had to suck my pride up. One, from the funny little outfits I'm wearing. Now I'm wearing this little tight suit on the back of the bike. Not only as a man, I'm back there behind another dude, my face directly behind him in a position that I would have never found myself before. So I think really like, I mean, God makes everything happen for a reason. And I think in my situation, it was a huge pride kick, but it allowed me to trust people in a different realm that I didn't think possible. Because I was the leader, I was the go-to person beforehand. And now that I'm on a tandem bike, I have to trust this guy because we're not just riding on a track. We're not just riding on a regular road. We're climbing Rocky Mountains to our right, there's a cliff that's 1,000-foot drop, and to our left is high traffic. So we can either get smashed by a diesel or we can fly off the plane, fly off a cliff. And I think just piecing everything together, how full circle came around that first event where we were able to do, I think it was like 400 plus miles. We got 2,800 plus thousand feet of, or 28,000 feet of elevation climbing. So I got the challenge that I wanted, but it also just broke that barrier of me being trapped, whether it was stuck indoors drinking or just kind of stuck in that mindset of I'm blind now, I can't do anything, to now the world's my oyster. And I've been blessed with so many opportunities just from jumping on a bike and pedaling that it's been phenomenal. So I think that's kind of where it pushed me forward to I did so ride the Rockies, I did the Bear 2 challenge, was still training for Warrior Games, so I had that event in mind, and then kind of fast forward to Warrior Games got canceled twice. The first year was just like COVID, nothing. We're not doing anything there. Next year, they ended up having it, and it was we bought the tickets, we were getting ready to go, all the athletes were ready, and then of course, just kidding, COVID got that one canceled again. So I was it was kind of one of those another rock bottom moments. Like, okay, I've been blessed. I've got all these side events. However, big picture wise, what exactly what's going to happen? Like, this is what I've been training for, and it just keeps getting shot down. I get that there's these masks and ninjas running everywhere, but like I'm ready to train, ready to get out there, and it just kind of worked out in my favor. So post Warrior Games, there's kind of like a chain of events. You've got the DoD that does Warrior Games. And then Prince Harry actually came down to Colorado Springs. I don't remember the exact year. He's seen what we were doing here. He's a pretty phenomenal guy. He's seen the power that the sports world impacted all these injured veterans, and he said he wanted to do it on an international scale. So he created this event called Invictus Games. So the Invictus Games is now it's a whole foundation, but it was the same concept of Warrior Games. However, instead of doing strictly DoD US, it was international. So he brought it on an international scale. And I mean, I had heard about the process. I've got a couple mentors, athletes, primarily Ellie Elizabeth Marks. She's a gold medalist Paralympic athlete now. She's phenomenal. And she was actually helping me in the swimming realm. And she went along that path. She did Warrior Games, Invictus Games, and then now she's a Paralympic athlete. So I knew in the big scheme of things, that was my goal. I'm always looking ahead. However, I was still waiting for Warrior Games. So come to find out, I was training, I was doing a bunch of other events, and one day I was running to the gym and I get a phone call from Chris Ugiano. He's the head of Team Army, and he was like, "You want to go to Invictus Games?" I was like, "Hell yeah!" It's like my first response. Me and Maverick, my guide dog, we were running to the gym, and I didn't expect it. Like I was still kind of waiting for what's happening with Warrior Games, what's going on. And Invictus Games was also put on hold over these years, obviously because of COVID. And it was it was just one of those blessings that, I mean, patience. If you just sit there and just keep grinding, things are gonna happen. So for me,
So I hate to
yes
interrupt
or no
this,
worse.
but so you've had a lot of great resources through the military and plugging you in with different programs and different sports. So for someone who's not considered part of the military or a part of the DoD, what advice would you give the regular civilian adaptive athlete to get plugged in, or what advice would you give them if they're looking for these sports?
So I think that's a problem that I've ran into quite a bit. Obviously, military, we are very blessed with different resources. However,
Right.
on the civilian side of things, that's kind of my mission now. I moved back to Albuquerque to help out just adaptive athletes in general. Um, but there is tons of different resources. I mean, you get this program right now, the whole person, you guys have a phenomenal organization here. And honestly, just look into whatever local resources you have. I know, so one of the ones that I've used, the Challenge Athletes Foundation, is I don't know if they're worldwide. They're definitely national. So any adaptive athlete can go online. You can fill out an application. They help out with whether it's gym grants, whether it's if you need adaptive equipment because these sports aren't cheap. But that first step that I recommend is for people to get out and try it. I mean, it's terrifying. No matter what situation, whether you were born with a deficiency or you were you something happen along the ways, I mean, life's gonna throw those speed bumps, but you've gotta just say yes and try something. So I would say reach out, find resources, whether it's I mean, if you're here in Kansas City, you're blessed, you have the whole person. If you're in a rural area that there's not, start Googling. I mean, luckily that the internet is phenomenal. There's Challenge Athletes Foundation. Move United is another big umbrella, and they work so basically Move United, they have a whole bunch of other smaller nonprofits under them that they fund. So just going to that one resource and honestly getting to an event is the biggest. Like you can Google all you want, you can do whatever, but for me, going to the events and networking physically with people. I mean, we're social creatures. God created us that way. So I think just getting that first step. And for me, I'm a talkative person. I can do XYZ, but after losing my sight, I got stuck in that bubble to where it's like isolation and I can't see now. So it's like I'm always isolated. And
Right.
luckily I got Maverick that attracts people. But when I got to that first event, I met another visually impaired person. That was powerful. That's what changed my outlook entirely. I went to an event with four other blinded vets. At the time, I didn't have a dog, I didn't have a cane. I was still embarrassed of being blind. And I think taking that step forward to getting to an event, finding another person either with a similar or just with a different impairment is just extremely powerful. So the biggest advice I have is just one, reaching out, whether it's yourself, if you're a young kid, have your family or somebody help you get to that point. And I think the biggest thing that I've discovered throughout the adaptive journey that I didn't realize, I guess I was naive in a way, there's so many genuine people. I mean, like you two here today that are I mean, from a podcast, from this entire building, there's people that truly care, and they're gonna help you out. So I think just reaching out, asking, and you can't be scared to say yes, whether it's a sport you've never tried. I never cycled, I never did archery, I never did any of these other sports, and I even snowboarding. I'm a blind snowboarder now, hoping to break barriers for blind snowboarding. It was terrifying. I was scared of heights before, and luckily I can't see the heights no more. But just just breaking those barriers of just saying yes and communicating with people, I would say just reach out. If there isn't a resource, you're gonna find one in your area. And I mean, especially being blessed with you guys, there's ways that people will help you out.
That's my biggest takeaway that I took from Mike when I first met him was that was my kind of I was kind of, Eeyore where I was like, "Oh, there's no resources," and I was kinda down in the dump because being a Leo, sometimes there's so many resources for veterans, and I was just kinda being, I was complaining. I was, I can't find anything." And, Mike was the first one to be like, "You just have to say yes. Find anything, something, someone who has an opportunity, and you just have to say yes." And after I kinda got out of my Eeyore moment, and I'm like, "He's right." There are, and, ATF was one of them, and I'm like, I'm blessed to be here, and, then after that and his second piece of advice, also a golden piece of advice of, just have to go then. Once you say yes, you have to go to these events, and you have to go and meet people because there are genuine people who care and want to share knowledge and be genuine and want to help you, because they just open the next door, and they open the next door, and the next door, and the next door, and I think that's if you really are truly interested in getting involved and want to meet more people and want to be in the community or just have questions, that's what you need to do. You just have to have the courage to say yes and go to an event and see if it's for you and just be in that community because there are people who want to help and want to bring you in and but you just have to first say yes, and that was the biggest kind of him just telling me that was just that eye opener for me. I'm like, "Oh, yeah, just do it. Just you might be scared, but just say yes." That was huge for me.
All right. So before you joined the military, what drew you to the Army? Because it sounds like you have many family members within the service. So is the Army just kind of a tradition for you guys, or was there a certain aspect of the Army that really drew you towards it?
Honestly, I think it was just my dad. Growing up, like I said, I was born in '90 during the time of Desert Storm, Desert Shield. My dad was deployed at the time, and I was born in Fort Hood. So I think it's just always been in my background. I wanted to follow in my dad's footsteps. So Army was it. I mean, obviously there was, I think from the hard charging aspect, Marines was kind of in the background, but it was either Army, Marines, and I think just because my dad was in, and I had other grandparents that were in the Army back in the day, so it was just kind of tradition, and it's kind of what I stuck with there.
Right. So then post-military career or the beginning of the injury, what sort of struggles, because I know you briefly touched on this, but what were those major struggles you dealt with during the first part of the injury?
So I think the biggest struggle I suffered was, I mean, darkness. It went from being deployed with a unit, always out around people, to where I think that sense of loneliness, and then that just sparks. There's a phrase called catastrophizing. Basically, once you get one, you kind of go in a downward spiral. And I think just kind of crappy. I was a master resilience trainer, which I knew how to get out of this. I just didn't apply those tasks because I was just in a rut. I think the head trauma has part to do with it. TBI kind of just made me go that direction. But I think my biggest struggles was alcoholism. I kind of turned towards the bottle and instead of turning towards other people. Um, and then that just led to nowhere positive. Not being able to have that sense of independence, even something simple as walking in the restroom. There was so many times where I honestly went into female restrooms all the time, and yeah, it was a joke. Okay, cool, you went in whatever restroom, but like internally, it just dug at me, and I wasn't gonna ask somebody like, "Can you take me?" It was embarrassing as heck, and I don't look like I'm blind. I've got a little bit of sight, and I can navigate around, but it was still that pride factor. I think that was just it was just hardcore that it hit. So instead of dealing with it, whether it was talking to a therapist or talking to other friends and people, I just turned to the bottle, isolated, got smashed, and passed out, and just went down a dark path that luckily I'm still here today. But there was days that I did not want to be here.
Right, which I think that's one of the hard things about the military is they drive into you like you have to be a hard charger 24/7. And if you're, especially as a NCO, if you're taken out of that realm of leading your men, or if you're incapable of leading your men, it really diminishes you to feeling like you're nothing, which is very toxic in many aspects of life. But what really helped motivate you and get you out of those dark times?
Um, I mean, initially support. I had family there, I had friends there, and I kind of knew they were all there. And you get trained, you know what resources you have. Like you know what's right. I can tell people all day, do this, do that. But doing it myself was the hardest aspect. So having that support there was huge. But I honestly think it took a while. It took like I got out of my dark slump, I'd say after 3 months, and I started moving and doing certain things. But in reality, like I preach to this day, adaptive sports truly saved my life. I think from I mean, I talked to therapists, I did certain things, and nothing against one-on-one therapy. It works for some people, but for me, sports is my therapy. It gets me out. You get physical activity, and then it also gets you around people. Like I cannot go and do any sport without a guide. And for me, that's huge. One, that takes away my pride factor. I'm blessed. I have so many people. Kate and I just got back from a snowboarding event. One of the staff members, who's also an adaptive athlete, took time out of his week to be my guide. So for me, that's huge that there's people out there that'll give up their time to guide me. Even Invictus and Warrior Games, I needed a guide for track, and I had I'm a faster distance runner than I am a sprinter, so I had to get a certain guide for running. So for my distance runs, I had a certain guide, and then just I think seeing humanity in people and just that aspect of sports brings people together. So really, what got me out of the slump, adaptive sports, having that first event, knowing that I had a goal again. I think just like you said in the military, I'm extremely goal oriented, and once you get out, you kind of lose that sense of purpose. And military or not, I think anybody in life needs goals. You can't just sit around and not have a purpose. Like
Mhm.
you have to have a reason for living. And whether it's, hey, I've got a goal to lose weight, I've got a goal to train for this event. No matter what you have, set a goal and stick to it. There's so many different steps you can do it. And once I had that goal again, it gave me that sense of purpose and that light to keep pushing forward.
Right now, what do you think your biggest achievement, not like in life, but like with adaptive sports, what do you think your biggest achievement so far has been?
Hmm. I guess I could take that on two realms. I think achievement wise, so highest international achievement going to Invictus Games, competing there. Um, the gold medals were phenomenal. I think my first event, I was a runner, so I did the 1500, and I think just that was my first ever race. So I think for me, that kind of broke the barrier of, holy crap, I can do this again. Because I did rides, I did different events, but they were never competitions. And I got thrown in with Josh Connolly. He was last minute, just got offered to be my pilot. Dude was like a foot taller than me. Luckily, I've got a decent stride, so I didn't know how it was going to work. It was my first time that I had to be blindfolded, so it was an even playing field, and a little nervous about it. I was like, let's see if I'm really blind or not. Let's figure this out. And we went out there, and I think that race alone has kind of set the stage on all my successes where I'm at now because not only did I have to get out there and prove that I can do this again, I had to trust this other guy to do it. Who he had no experience. Like it's a huge responsibility in my eyes. I think I'm always back there and I'm pretty easygoing guy. I can get along with most people. I can jump on the back of the bike with anybody. However, for another person to guide somebody, let alone he has his own issues, and I didn't even know what his injury was at the time. I didn't find out until after we got interviewed. Come to find out, he's been battling cancer for the last X amount of years. He's at stage 3. This dude's been through hell and back again, and he's just like, hell yeah, I'll jump on and guide this guy. So I think like it's wild how life works because yes, it's a simple sport, but I've got this dude who's struggling through his stuff. We're on an international stage, and he's just like, hell yeah, let's go. We get out there, and we're running around the track, and that's whenever like my senses just kicked in. And it's an international competition, yeah. Team US versus Team Ukraine versus all these other nations. However, the power of sport is huge. The entire crowd is cheering for us. So it was myself and my buddy Jacob Cox racing against each
Oh
other.
yeah, Jacob.
And yeah, so he was an ATF athlete with us,
Mhm.
and just the entire crowd. So I can tell what side of the track I was on based on voices. I had one side where it's this crowd, it gets louder on this side, and he's giving me cues. So I think from overall achievements, that was probably, I mean, at the time, that event alone led us to get we got the Spirited Games Award. Jaguar was a sponsor, so they gave us this pretty cool award at the end of the games. It was presented by Prince Harry.
Yeah, I saw that.
And I had it in the hotel, supposed to bring it by, my bad. But I think achievement wise, that's kind of what got me over that speed bump. And then I'd say medal wise now, my first national championship kind of got thrown at me. So I became, fast forward now, I'm a tandem cyclist. I ended up going to the Tennessee Para Open last year right after ATF, and ended up getting qualified for the VA stipend. So if you're a
Mhm.
VA athlete, you can get paid if you hit a certain standard. So we went there, we hit that, and I was focusing on road and gravel more, kind of thinking road was going to be my primary racing, and then I got thrown track. So go back to Ride the Rockies. John Walsh, a guy I met the year before, he invites me to be a stoker on the last day. I jump on the bike with him, and he's asking me, "You gonna go to track nationals?" And I did one camp before. I did track cycling, and it was fun. Just not a whole lot of track cycling that I can do. It's limited because you have to be a Paralympic athlete. And it was just like, cool, I could jump on a bike and ride. So he invites me. We go out to LA
Which
last July.
this sounds like a great story, but now
Yes,
is
sir.
the perfect time for an ad break. So bear
Perfect.
with us.
Yes, sir.
We'll be back in a few minutes. Thank you, guys.
Life Life can present challenges, but the whole person believes in turning challenges into triumphs. Our staff is trained to provide compassionate, personalized care that enhances the lives of our consumers, enabling them to live independently and with dignity. The whole person believes in the power of human connection. Our staff extends their reach into vibrant communities, fostering connections and creating moments of joy for every consumer we serve. Whether that's through peer support groups, adaptive sports, employment services, or non-emergency medical transportation, our staff provides exceptional care and become trusted companions and confidants. Your donation will help us continue to expand our programs and services to help people with disabilities remain independent and living in their home. Consider giving a gift today. Thank you.